Hi, welcome to Clarity 16.4.1 Feature Supportability Training. I am Santosh Panchali and I'm a product manager of Clarity. In this session, we'll review the general enhancements made to the reporting area of Clarity. So, what's new in this release? We are continually looking for ways to make your reporting experience smoother and more customizable. First, the table widgets column picker has been moved to the Properties Setup tab for improved usability. Next, added the ability to control the visibility of per period metric fields across different table grouping levels. And added the ability to hide aggregation types from the table column headers. And last but not the least, added new customization options for viewing, grouping, and filtering OBS data in tables and supported chart types. And why are these important? Selecting columns and tables is much easier now. The column picker has been moved from the table itself, where it could get crammed on smaller tables, over to the Properties Setup tab for a more spacious and user-friendly experience. Next, by letting you hide specific per period metrics, you can ensure that only the most relevant data shows up at each grouping, detail, or total row level, keeping your tables clutter-free by hiding metrics that don't apply. And hiding aggregation labels like min, max, average, etc. frees up valuable space in your table headers. It's a great way to keep your tables looking clean, especially when the aggregation method behind a metric is already obvious to the user. Lastly, tailoring how OBS data, that is the organizational breakup structure data, is displayed lets you show the full hierarchy or skip some specific levels for a cleaner and more readable view. Plus, powerful new grouping options mean you can easily summarize data at the exact levels your executives need to see, which was not possible earlier. Now, let us go through a demonstration to see these in action. I am logged into Clarity and I'm on the design page for this report called Capacity versus Demand. In this tab, we have a table widget. If you can recollect that in previous versions, the toolbar of the table had an option, clicking on which would bring up the column picker that is tied to the table, which meant that for smaller tables, it was getting really congested to choose columns. Now, the same column picker is moved to the table properties setup tab here. It even lets you know how many have already been selected, like in this case, 4. Clicking on it would bring the column picker and I can explore the columns in a space that is more comfortable to use. Note that all the functionality of the column picker that was available earlier is retained. For example, I can select more columns or deselect to remove them, or let's say search for a column, or directly dragging and dropping of a column to the table like this. And even other functionalities like right clicking on a particular column and grouping by on it, etc. Now let's go and add a few more columns like department and remove corporate function OBS. And in the per period metrics, let's add availability and total usage as well. And also change the per period metric settings to show total and periods and change the orientation to rows. And group by, say, department, And let's also group by booking manager. Now the data is displayed accordingly. Now when we expand this instance, for example, we can see the expanded data. In this table, this is the department or the group 1 level row. Likewise, this is the booking manager or group 2 level row. And this is the bottommost or the detail level row, right? Now, let's say we'd not like to see total usage at the bottommost level. And let's say that we would not like to see allocation at group 2 level, for example. How do we do that? For that, I can check the column menu on per period metrics. And now I can see something called hide fields. And in here, for detail level, say all the three metrics are by default toggled to be displayed. However, I can choose not to display total usage for this. Let's do that. Similarly, for group 2 row level, let's hide allocation. And if I had a requirement to hide any at the top or group 1 level, I could have done it here. But let's say we'll leave these three here to be displayed. And now when we save these settings and expand the rows, we can see that the total usage is not displayed for the detail row anymore. Similarly, group 2 level rows do not show the allocation. However, we can see all the three metrics for the top group row because that is how we've left. By the way, if we have a total row configured, we can control the visibility on that row as well. Let's quickly check that. And now check the hide fields. As you can see, we can control that at total row level as well. Also, let's check how to access these settings when the per period metrics are rendered in column orientation. Let's go ahead and change it to columns orientation. And in this case, clicking on the menu for a particular per period metric, like say allocation, would bring settings panel for that particular metric. And you can control it for each group row level from here. Now, let's check another report. Say this one about programs and hierarchies. Here, we can see a table configured to show hierarchies data grouped by each hierarchy. Here, the aggregations are configured to show earliest, that is the minimum of the start, and the latest, that is the maximum of the finish dates. The aggregation methods are displayed in the column headers as we can see here. Now, what if we'd like to not see the aggregation method in the column header? Maybe because it's obvious and we'd like to save some space for the column widths. For that, in the table properties format tab, we now have a setting called show value aggregation. It is toggled on by default to show the aggregation method. However, it can be turned off. Let's do that. As we can see, the aggregations are still performed, albeit without the column headers being mentioned in the column headers mentioning the aggregation method. Now, let's switch gears and review the enhancement made in visualizing OBS data in reports. First, let's review how an OBS called corporate function OBS is set up. I have created a work plan so that we can see the full hierarchical tree of the OBS. At the top is Enterprise Software Org, under which there are 4 direct units: DevOps, Engineering, Product Management and Strategy, and then Professional Services. Under each is their own hierarchies. Let's expand DevOps. I'll not read out every unit here, but we'll pause here for a few seconds so that you can review and get an idea of the hierarchy. Let's collab this and expand engineering. You can see the engineering units here. Let's collab this. Next one, product management and strategy. And here are its units. And lastly, professional services. And here are its units. Now, let's go back to the capacity versus demand report that we were viewing earlier. I have arranged the table to display the corporate function OBS data field. As you would expect, the OBS data displayed here is the full hierarchical path of each associated OBS units for the records. This is helpful at times, but not always. For example, I know all of these resources are from the enterprise software org. It will be good if there is a way to skip displaying that level here. But how do we do that? That's where the new OBS display option comes in. This can be found in the column header menu of any OBS field, like this. Let's click it. It gives you a flexibility of which level units you would like to display and which ones not to display. By default, it is configured to show the full path like how we were seeing. However, we can see just the attached unit, which is the bottommost unit in the hierarchy. Optionally, you can also choose to display the parent of that bottommost unit as well. Let's check that and see how it looks like. As we can see here, the OBS data displays just the attached unit and its parent only. No more full path. This can be quite helpful, reducing the amount of data displayed for that column. Now, let's check the OBS display option again. With levels, I can fine-tune which exact levels of the hierarchy I'd like to see. For example, I can remove org level, which I know is always enterprise software, and say, let's remove role. Let's see how this looks like. As we can see, the hierarchy here starts from the division level and ends at the team level, skipping the org and the role that we've unchecked. This could be our requirement at times. The point here is that the new OBS display option provides a complete flexibility in fine-tuning the OBS hierarchical path in ways that is appropriate for my reporting needs. What's even more powerful is the fact that we can now group by OBS at these configured levels. For example, let's switch the display back to the attached unit and choose the parent. We can see the data here. Let's group by the OBS field. Now, the data is actually aggregated and summarized at the attached unit level. This can be quite powerful to summarize data at levels that make sense for the executives that review these reports, isn't it? Now, let's check the filtering options when it comes to OBS. Here, you can see that the filtering options still provide a way to navigate the entire hierarchical tree, providing you flexibility with filtering units at any levels. By the way, I can even sort the data by the OBS as it is displayed, like this. This flexibility is not just limited to tables though. It is also supported for selective chart types, namely pie, donut, bar, column, and line charts. Let's see it on this allocations by OBS pie chart. Here in the chart properties format tab, I can see the option for OBS display as a button. Clicking on it would bring the same options we saw earlier, like full path, attached unit, including parent, or fine tuning by levels. Let's leave it to show attached unit and choose the parent. As we can see, the data is grouped, aggregated, and displayed accordingly. Also, this works for drill down reports as well. Here, I have already configured one to display the list of resources for each pie. Let's get into the preview mode and check the drill down for this pie for we will check the drill down for pie front-end experience software engineer. We can see that it drills down just for that path, and the OBS here is configured to display the attached unit and parent as well instead of the full path. In addition to tables and selective chart types, these options are also available for attribute group widget as well. Let's check it out. On this particular tab, we have an attribute group here. In the format tab, we can see the OBS display here. Clicking on it again brings the same options where we can configure how to display the OBS data in the attribute widget, attribute group widget. All right, to summarize what we saw in the demo today, we reviewed how the column picker in a table is moved to the properties setup tab, greatly improving the usability. Next, we reviewed how to hide different per period metric fields at various grouping levels in a table. Then we reviewed how to hide the value aggregation type or the method, that is min, max, average, etc. from column header labels in a table. And lastly, we covered the new OBS display option and how it brings powerful ways to visualize and group OBS data in tables, attribute group widgets, and supported chart types. This concludes the session on general enhancements in reporting area for Clarity Release 16.4.1. Thank you.